an ATSC3 certified Android set-top box. But is it any good? Let's find out. Dave Taylor here, and I'm checking out this. This is the GTMedia Converter X1 ATSC3 Android tuner box. What the heck's all that? It is a digital tuner. So you plug in an antenna. I have a little mini one here that I'm using for these tests, and it then gives you the ability to watch any channels that are over the air. Now, where ATSC3 becomes interesting is that we had a switch from analog to digital signals some years ago, and you had to get a new tuner. If you had an old tube TV, and this is a long time ago at this point, then its tuner no longer worked. So you had to get a digital tuner. Modern TVs, like this little Vizio, have a built-in digital tuner, so it works up to a point. And what happened was all the broadcasters said, well, if we're doing over-the-air channels, can we do HD? Can we do 4K? Can we give you Dolby sound? And they really wanted to move up and have better quality. Enter ATSC3. Now, it's important to note that just about every signal you're going to receive is ATSC1, which does not have the option of encryption, and it can do HD and look really good, and I'll give you a demo of that in just a minute or two, but it's not as capable as ATSC3. However, less than 1% of the broadcast signals in the United States are using ATSC 3.0, and of those, a smaller percentage are actually using DRM, or digital rights management, for encryption. So this does have the ability to use those much more sophisticated channels to let you watch them, if you give it internet connectivity, that is. But you can do that, but then the question becomes, do you actually receive any ATSC3 channels? And if you do, are any of them actually DRM encoded? So when I went through and looked at all the channels this device could receive in my area, I didn't have any ATSC3 at all. So whether or not they were DRM encoded, it didn't really matter. But almost every single channel that I've seen that uses ATSC3 also has an ATSC1 version of it, which is just a little bit lower resolution. All of that is to say that if you plug this into an antenna of any sort, and if you have an old antenna on your roof, those tend to be really good, actually. Most of those are the best way you can actually get all these channels. And then you plug it in, you run a channel scan. We're going to do that first in just a second. And then it gives you a lot of over-the-air channels, just like in the old days before cable TV cost $175 a month, or before you went and chose something like YouTube TV, which every 6 months goes up 20%. So who knows how much that's going to end up being in a couple of years. But all of this, once you get it set up, everything's free. That's the point of broadcast television, is that you don't have to pay to subscribe to watch ABC and NBC and Fox and CBS. And so the major broadcast networks and a bunch of little guys are all free once you get this set up, if you get them with a good enough signal in your area. Now, one of the other big claims to fame for the GTMedia Converter X1 is that it has a built-in DVR. So yes, you can record over-the-air broadcasts and watch them again later, or even actually take the device out if you're using an external device. And I have just a simple USB drive here, a little flash drive, and I just plugged it in, and you'll see it lights up. It's actually pretty cool. And now I can use that as storage for my DVR. But the DVR is a pretty shallow implementation. In fact, I will say overall, the user experience with this demonstrates just how hard it is to make a really easy to use system. Now, the box comes with a very nice remote control that gives you a ton of features and capabilities. and it comes with an HDMI cable so you can plug it into your television. And then I have a separate little tiny powered antenna that is not the greatest antenna in the world. It was less than $25, but it gives me the ability to test with it. And then it requires its own power to be plugged in, and it does light up on the top, and that color actually gives you some feedback. If it lights up and it's red, then you got problems. But if it's green, it should be all systems go. Now, I have more I want to tell you about the box, but let's just jump into a demo. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually run a channel scan. So let's get that rolling. Now, I have sped up this channel scan quite a bit because it takes about 5 minutes to go through all 35 different RF frequencies that are used for broadcast television. And you can see here, it got some channels for me, but it was really not as good as some of the other tuners I've tested, but we got it all rolling, so let's see where we are from here. Looks like I found 35 channels, which is not great, but let's see what we got. So I'm going to go here and go to Home. And so we'll come back to the tuner in a minute, but here you can see that the top row are apps that I've used recently. And if we don't want to use the tuner, we can always go to something like YouTube. And remember, this is a wireless connection, so it's just on my Wi-Fi. And it is reasonably speedy. And let's go back to that home screen. Obviously, here's the sort of menu on YouTube. But if we go back to home, then there's other options here. If I want to go to something like Disney Plus, then let's see how this works. New version available. I can do that, but I don't want to. And so you can see in the background that I can sign up for Disney. Now, one of the streaming apps that often has some tricks involved with it is Netflix, which is very, very constrained about what devices it will run on. So let's see how it does with Netflix. And what we're looking for is a native app, and that looks like what we have. So let's see. Oh, please make some updates. We have to update our browser. So what we have is we have Netflix through a web browser, and it's an older web browser. So there's going to be a little bit of fiddling involved to get that one to work. That is pretty common. Netflix does not want to be on third-party boxes. But we can also get to things like the Play Store and so on. We can even go to the Chrome web browser. You can see that over here. But the interface for entering data is pretty mediocre with the remote control, so I would not recommend using this as your web browser. So let's go back to our tuner. And a little confusingly, there are two different on-screen program guides. So this is the, actually hold on, let me mute it. So this is the on-screen guide that you get if you push OK, and it has program information on the right, and then I can actually choose different channels. And if you look on the very, very bottom, you can see what the encoding is for this particular channel. So this is 177 megahertz at ATSC, which means ATSC1. And we can go through, and what you notice is that with all these different channels, it has not successfully picked up any ATSC3 channels. Although some of them, like this, which is PBS, is actually a very good frequency and a very good reception, but there's nothing that's actually ATSC3. Let's try world. I don't know what world is, but we'll go there. And I'm also bouncing around because I don't have the rights to rebroadcast any of this content. But you can see here are all these different choices. We can try antenna. Hazel, I guess Hazel's another sitcom. And so with all the different channels I've received here, none of them are ATSC3, which probably is an issue, but maybe isn't. I'll come back to that when I'm back on camera. But I also want to show you that if I want to record this program, Hazel, then I go to DVR, and then I start recording, and then you can see on the top right that it's actually has that flashing red button. And so now it's a little confusing, but when you go to the channel list now, then it only shows you other channels on the same RF frequency. So I could actually change channels while it's recording, as long as I'm in that same RF band, and it will record the correct program. And when I'm done with the recording, then I can go back here and I can go, oh, it looks like it's gotten confused here. Oh, I understand, because I'm on a different channel. So let's go back here. And no, that's not the right place. Let's go to channel list and then go back to antenna. Okay, see, so this is how this really pushes a lot of this user interface onto the user. So now I can actually stop the recording. Okay, we'll stop all, even though that's the only one I have going on. We'll go back to recording and let's see what we have. So I have a couple of different programs that I've recorded, and we can choose this one and it should play off of here. So yeah, this is what we just recorded, and that recording playback is not fantastic. So again, this is, in a lot of ways, it feels like it's a work in progress. So I'm gonna just try, let's just try switching to a different channel. Okay, so now we're back to broadcast, and you can see here that the picture, stop playing that, yes, given that I'm watching something else. Let's see what's happening here. So on channels with strong signals, it might be ATSC1, but hopefully it should still look really good. And I'm not sure what's happening here. Let's try going to a different channel. Let's try this one. I think the tuner's gotten a bit confused here. Oh, there we go. So you can see, I can't stay on the channel for long, but there is nothing wrong with the video quality or with the audio or anything. It's really nice. But if I go back here, then we can see this is called Wildlife Nation. So that's this program. And it is functional. Is it a great device? Well, let me jump back on camera. That's the whole experience, and it's kind of a mixed bag. I think that the technology is really cool. I expect with a better antenna I would get better results, though I did try a better antenna and got the same number of channels. I'm not sure what that's about. Now, I live in North Boulder, Colorado, about, I don't know, 50 miles from Denver, so I don't have a huge number of channels from which I can choose over-the-air broadcast, but I should have gotten more than this received. And again, as you saw, no ATSC3 at all, but I know there were some in my area, which is curious. But let me tell you about the box just a little more. It's running Android 11, has 2 gig of RAM, 32 gig of built-in storage, and of course you can do external storage, as I have done here. It does support 4K, HDR10, it does support Dolby AC4, but all of those are dependent on the signal that you get and whether that signal's strong enough and actually has all of those technologies baked into what it's sending you. So just because it is a 4K box doesn't mean that Home Shopping Network is going to be in 4K. That's just kind of how that works. So HDMI 2.1, USB 2.0 for that external storage, Bluetooth 5.0, you have some ability to work with Bluetooth. In fact, let me show you on the back all of the plugs. And you can see there's antenna in, there's Ethernet for the maximum speed connection to your internet, and then there's that HDMI 2.1, and finally there's power, and it does need to be plugged in at all times. And on the side is that USB 2.0 plug. The remote control is actually pretty sophisticated. There are a lot of buttons and a lot of features on this, and you can also teach it, apparently, to actually work with your TV, though I haven't seen any instructions on how to do that, but those top set of buttons are actually for your television. Now, here's a close-up so you can see all the different buttons and features more easily. And a lot of this is sort of you're on your own. What do those little colored buttons on the bottom do? Well, there's some indication on some of the on-screen menus that they might serve specific purposes, but other than that, I'm not sure. If I wanted to set up the red one to take me to Netflix, it might do that, it might not do that. I don't know. Maybe that's something where I need to email customer service and they'd send me that. But it does also work with streaming channels. As you saw, I could have gotten Disney, I could have dug through and done the necessary updates and hopefully got Netflix working on it. But really, this is an external tuner. So this is a way that you can get over-the-air broadcast channels on your TV, and if you get a good enough signal and you have a good enough antenna, then they can look beautiful and sound great. And it's certainly plenty good enough for Monday Night Football or for the election debates or for whatever else that you really enjoy watching. Now, size-wise, it's 3.8 inches by 3.8 inches by 0.8 of an inch and 10 ounces. And there's really not much else I can tell you. The overall experience with it is kind of a mixed bag. I think I was more frustrated than happy with the results I got. There were times when it didn't have on-screen program guides. There's no grid where you can see here are all your channels and here are all the programs currently running on all of them. It's much more manual than that. And it reflects, as I said earlier, how hard it is to create a really nice, seamless experience with your TV viewing, given that it's going to be different for each of us. And the channels I get are going to be different to the channels you get. And you might do a scan and suddenly new channels are there. Or it might be horrible weather and that's causing electrical interference and your favorite channel is in fact not viewable until the weather improves. So this is really, to some extent, hearkening back to 30 years ago before cable TV came along. And this is why cable TV was such a revolution, because you didn't have to worry about all of these variables. All you needed was a good signal. So this is an option for you if you never want to pay another nickel for any subscription services, and yet still be able to watch the major networks and possibly some side networks that are your favorites like MeTV or Catchy or things like that. You know, so that's what I got. I hope this was valuable. I think that if you're going to acquire one of these, know the pros and the cons. It is possibly a good solution for you, but there are a ton of companies selling Android 11 TV tuners that are little external boxes, and prices go all over the range. And ATSC3 certified DRM decoding is great if you get those channels and if you don't have an alternative. So, you know, again, a really great feature, but possibly not one that you'll actually use. So I am going to ask you to subscribe to my channel because I get a lot of gear and I always give you the honest scoop on it. Click on that bell icon for notifications. Give me a thumbs up if you found this of value. Great. Now, this is the GTMedia Converter X1 ATSC3 Android tuner box, and it is $129.99 at Amazon.com. So that is considerably more spendy than when it was on Indiegogo, but that's kind of how those things work. And I think they're going to keep revising that software and it's going to become a better and better experience. I hope that's the case because this has a lot of potential. And frankly, I really like the design. I think the little house with the color on it is very fun. But it's kind of expensive to get a cool logo. So make sure this is what you want. And I hope when you do your channel scan that you get dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of channels. If you're in an urban area, then you're going to be blown away by how many channels are just out there being broadcast in the air, and none of them require you having to pay for it. How cool is that? That's everything I got. I'll hope to catch you in my next video.